Today, Rob McElrath, again, will be presenting the developer and MasterMine guru. So without further ado, take it away, Rob.
Thank you, Carnegie. Welcome, everybody. Today's session is really aimed at, it's not necessarily only for you if you are a salesperson. It is meant to be a way to learn about MasterMine reports that are salesperson-centric, so to speak, or salespeople that salespeople would use as MasterMine users. Actually, why don't I just start with that explanation and kind of jump into it with a few slides here. So what I wanted to do is sort of introduce the issues associated with reporting related to salespeople. And what we're aiming to do here is really speak to you as you may be a you may be the marketing person or the IT person or whatever. You're the person whose job is you're the kind of go-to person within your company for getting information from Goldmine or possibly any other application. It is typically, and you'll probably hear me preach about this a lot, it's typically not a great idea to have only one person in a company who's able to extract useful information from your most critical information resources for pretty obvious reasons. And yet, I would say, I would hate to think that it's a majority, but it's probably close. The companies that work with us actually do that. They literally only have one person in the organization able to do reporting. What we're aiming to do here is kind of spread out the knowledge a little bit, and we want to do that generally with these end-user online events here to give you a sense that, hey, you know, if MasterMine is easy to use, which I hope that you agree that it is, then if you're thoughtful about it and you give users reports that are appropriate to their level of skill, in other words, they might be really, really low-skilled people, but anybody can go into Goldmine and click a button and have a report come up and look at it. I mean, if their reading skills are good enough, that's all it takes. So that's the lowest level of MasterMine usage, but above that are, you know, people who can actually, you know, double-click a mouse to drill through a report, or, explain to someone else what kind of information they want and then get it, but explain that in such a way that that's sort of based upon an understanding of what Excel looks like. Those are levels of skill that oddly enough people don't give other people credit enough for having, but they really do have it. If you're a salesperson, you're probably not an idiot. You're probably pretty smart in certain areas that you work, but oftentimes people want to treat them like idiots, and I think that that's an unfortunate fact that really results in a lot of organizations having salespeople who are sort of in the dark, who probably complain a lot about being in the dark, but that for whatever reason the organization doesn't see fit to make them able to figure out what they need to know to do their job better. Anyway, I'll stop preaching about that too much, but so just to kind of focus what we're talking about today, what I'm really aiming for is we're going to be talking about reporting that's probably useful at the sales manager level, but that's also, or versions of it are also useful at the individual salesperson level. In other words, a report that a salesperson can pull up that supports them doing their job better. It might be created by somebody else, might be created by you if you're on this call, because since you're probably the main MasterMine user or one of the few, but if you take these reports and you deploy them to those users on their Goldmine taskbars, and that's very easy to do with one button on the MasterMine taskbar, then you can expand knowledge and capability within your company. Okay, so what are the issues related to excuse me, reports related to reports that are for specific sales reps? I've listed a few of them here, and these first couple ones are ones that are kind of sales manager objections to sales reps having their own reports. Well, they don't want sales reps who are digging around in the data too much. They want them out there making calls. They want them out there doing the work. And of course, sales reps themselves oftentimes will say that too. I don't want to be messing around with reports. I want to be, I'm a salesperson. I should be out there doing my job. Well, if you're out there doing your job smarter, you're probably going to be more successful. To some extent, it's true you don't want them kind of messing around and digging around in data all the time, because that isn't their business, and God knows there are situations where people would rather you know, mess around in data than actually get out and do the job of being a sales rep. So a balance has to be struck. But the truth is, better focused supporting knowledge leads to better sales, and ignorance leads to a lot of flailing about and not accomplishing things. So let's not take this first one as gospel and just say, you know, sales reps shouldn't have reports. The second one is another fairly common issue. People want sales reps to be able to get information but not get other people's information. You know, they should have a forecast sale report that is their own forecast but not the other guy's forecast, not their competitive salesperson within the organization. Now, sometimes that's important. In some organizations, it's not important at all. In some, they actually encourage people to know what the others are doing so they can keep up with the top guy or gal. You know, it's not always useful to keep the people who are not succeeding ignorant of what the people who are succeeding are doing, because, you know, clearly if you have the ambition to succeed, and that is measured by, let's say, how many dollars you make on your sales, then you should be trying to emulate the practices of the person who is doing better. I don't think I need to pound on that too hard. And by the way, we will come back to that one as well, because obviously making reports that are siloed out, that prevent the user from seeing other people's stuff, are certainly possible. Compliance with goldmine rules. This next one is really more an issue of, well, since our sales reps don't actually put the information in that they should in goldmine, wouldn't do any good for them to have reports that that show what's in goldmine, because it's all junk anyway. Now, I'm going to turn that one around on you as well, of course, because if you want people to comply with your goldmine rules, to put information into goldmine, you need to feed back to them some result. You know, make it useful for them to put correct information into goldmine. Don't just hit them with a whip when they don't do it. Give them good, useful information that helps them do their job better. Then all of a sudden you will see people complying with the goldmine rules, and then you get a virtuous cycle instead of a spiral down where bad information in goldmine leads to lack of interest and support from the users, and that just means, you know, worse information, and eventually your CRM falls apart. So and then the next issue, and this is kind of the last, or I think it's the last one, relating performance to pay. This kind of gets at what I was just saying, which is if your salesperson has reports that support what they're trying to do, let's say make more money, which is oftentimes what drives salespeople. It's not always, but usually is. Then they should have reports that show if you do X, you will make Y dollars, and if you do X plus 2, you will make Y plus, you know, some other dollars. Make it very clear that all they need to do is succeed in what they're trying to do, and that in what you've agreed is their job to do, and the dollars will be there, and they can let them track that all the way through the year, all the way through the quarter, right up until the point the check arrives. Then you've got somebody who's managing themselves and doing a better job, rather than somebody who's just simply working in the dark and waiting to see whether they'll get punished or rewarded later on. And I think you would agree that, you know, the first one is the better. Do I sound cynical? I've talked with a lot of sales managers and sales reps in my time, and there's a fair amount of cynicism out there, and I'm just trying to report it the way I hear it back. So if those are the issues, then you know, what are the main concerns that a sales rep has, or how do those get verbalized from the sales rep side? Pretty straightforward. How much money will I make if I, you know, do these sales? Am I covering my territory is another concern that a sales rep has. In other words, you know, the first one's pretty straightforward. You can have reports that show how much money they'll make. Second one is another pretty obvious concern. If there are opportunities in the territory that's available to me, am I covering them? Am I actually hitting them all? These are probably the number one and number two questions that you get from sales reps who frankly don't know. I mean, so often you've got a sales situation where the actual users don't actually know, you know, one of these two questions, and that is destructive to their accomplishment as salespeople. I'm going to get into the individual reports here in a moment, but, you know, I really want to emphasize the value of having sales reps have their own reports. Next concern, fairly obvious one, how can I not look like an idiot? I have seen more sales reps who are willing to go a long way to avoid looking like I didn't know what was going on. Willing to go a long way, but meaning they're willing to work hard for that. But are they being enabled to work smart? In other words, do you have reports that will actually give your users knowledge about the people that they're about to call? Reports that make it so that it's easy, even though they're calling 40 people today, each one, before they make that call, has the information right at their fingertips to be able to say, to understand where they are, so that when they call up and the person picks up the phone, they're not gibbering, they actually know who it is they're talking to and why they're talking to them. That can be accomplished with reports. It can also be accomplished with just intelligent use of Goldmine. And then finally, this is one that's for the more aggressive or the more ambitious kind of salesperson. Not only am I making all the money that I can, but how am I doing versus the competition? We don't necessarily mean the competition outside the company, although sometimes you can have that kind of information. You can have competitive information associated with your Goldmine records, and you could and should have good reports that cover that. But if the user is in a sales room with 20 other people, and they're all competing for bonuses, they're all competing for prizes, they're competing for whatever it is, they want to know how they're doing versus others in the organization. In the most dire kind of boiler room situation, maybe it's a competition to keep your job, but hopefully in a more realistic and real life kind of situation, it's just we've got a sales contest and I want to win it. Do I have reports that tell me how I'm doing? Give me feedback so that I can do a better do a better job and arrive at the best solution. So if those are the concerns, here's the reports that I'm going to suggest will deal with those, and I'm going to make a list of these, and then I'm going to switch over into Excel. We're going to talk about specific ones, and I'll show you those. So first one, actual sales versus quota, is the fairly obvious one that every sales organization typically wants at the sales management level. What I don't understand is how can you not have every individual salesperson also know how they're doing against their quota, as opposed to just simply saying you need to meet this number and I'll let you know on July 31st whether you hit it or not. There are way too many organizations where the users don't actually know where their bread and butter are supposed to come from and how they're doing. And they may know for the current month, but they sure don't know for the quarter, and they don't know for the year. We're going to show you a report that helps you to manage that. Neglected leads. Where do I have leads that have fallen through the cracks that I should be getting so that I am covering my territory well? Calling effort. How hard am I working? Now that's often again, that's kind of more often a concern for the sales management. But if you as a salesperson know that you need to make 40 calls a day in order to achieve the 10 key contacts that you want to have per day with your customers, and out of those contacts you expect to get 1 or 2 demos, and at the end of the month, if you've made, let's say, 2 demos per day, then you expect to have, out of those 60 demos you did 40 demos that you did that month, that half of them are going to buy from you. Then that all starts with really just understanding what was my effort, how much effort did I put into it, and then each step after the effort actually has more to do with quality of work as opposed to just simply quantity. Customer analysis. Can you actually understand who your best customers are so that you can go out and find more of them who are like them, or maybe understand who your worst customers are, the ones who you made a little money from in exchange for a lot of work, and maybe not pursue that type of users as much. The way to accomplish that is to do some customer analysis. Again, we'll come to those. And finally, every sales rep, again, not sales manager, not the sales account manager, but the actual sales rep ought to have an exceptions report that tells them, for all the leads that you entered into the system, of all the leads that you entered into the system in the past week, the past month, whatever it is, let's open up that exceptions report and see who's listed on there, because exceptions mean you failed to enter a code. You failed to fill in all the fields. Whatever it is. You probably didn't do it out of malice. You did it because you were in a hurry, you were doing something else, you did a typo. Humans make mistakes. Exceptions reports help you catch those mistakes, fix them, get everything into the position it needs to be so that, for example, marketing is going to be able to count on the fact that when you put a prospect in the database, it actually says prospect and not propsect in the contact type. Therefore, marketing is going to get the marketing pieces out to them instead of just simply ignoring them until you call them up and they don't know who you are. All right, that's my quick spiel on what reports we need. I'm going to switch over to, hopefully I'm going to switch over quickly to this one. Thought I was going to. There we go. To our famous demo database here, and let's look at some specific reports. Now, I'm not going to build reports from scratch here for the most part. I want to just pull up some examples, although in the questions afterwards, if you want to know, how did we get to this report, I am happy to tell you. Some of the reports here require some messing around in the back of it to have it turn out to be exactly the way I've presented it. But for the most part, I have made it so that, now why did my graph just disappear here? Oh, there it is again. Many of these can be simply done, within a couple of minutes, just running MasterMine templates. So the trick here is understanding on your end. Now I'm assuming I'm talking now to the report creator, not necessarily the report user, who are different people. The report creator, you might have to do a little bit of work and thinking about, what is the sensible way to have that information, the way, given the way my business runs, the way our business works, what's the sensible way to have that laid out so that a user at a glance knows what they need to know. That is the challenge of doing report writing, and sadly it is underprized because it's not understood by the people who usually pay you to do this sort of stuff. If it's really done well, it's a huge valuable asset to the company. If it's done badly, then it can be the opposite. And so if you don't get the training or you don't get the online support to do what you need to do, then you should be asking for it. Okay, let's look at actual sales versus quotas here. This is a report or versus goals. In this case, we use the word goal. But this is a report that compares the completed sales in Goldmine. This is actually, it's both completed and pending. So this is what's under history, completed sales. This is what's under the pending tab in Goldmine. These are forecast sales. We also have lost sales in here, but we've turned off the lost sales. So if I show you the drop downs here, so we're showing a goal. Now the goal isn't built into Goldmine at all. The goal in this case is in a separate Excel spreadsheet that we are reading into this pivot table simultaneously with the actuals. And I did this really as a kind of an exercise because I wanted you all to know that this is possible, but also because I just feel like this is a pretty good way of presenting as a sales manager or the salesperson again, where you are in relation to what you are shooting for. Got a nice graph of it down here where the blue line here, the blue dots actually at either end of here represent here's what the actual goal is for each of these levels. The yellow or the red is our year-to-date actual sales, and the green represents our forecasts for the remaining months of the year. But this is all 2014, and this is for a particular user. Now, one reason that I did it this way is that I want you to know is it's useful, of course, to be able to do this across the whole team, to have every user, able to be compared with all the other ones. In this case, I just chose a single user here. In fact, I think I changed the query. I did. I set the query up so that it only includes this one person's sales and goals. Again, to sort of answer that concern that people have of, well, we don't want them necessarily to know what the other people are doing. Don't want them to be able to drill through and see who the other person's clients are. I think that more often than not, people are overprotective about that, but I won't go back and preach about that. So this is just one possible view now. In this case, I broke it out also by different products, by product category. So we've got gadgets and widgets within our database. Now we could also roll this down and show the individual products. I double-clicked on gadgets here. Just want to, we would overwrite the gap analysis there if we did. So I'm going to insert a space for us to do that roll down. If anything along the way here doesn't make sense to you, let me know, of course. But so what I'm doing is I'm just simply making a little adjustment to this report just so we can see them rolled down by the individual gadgets that we're selling. This is the actual product line from your forecast sale or your completed sale records in Goldmine. In case anybody's wondering, you know, what is it actually that's in Goldmine that's showing up in the report here, I'll do a quick drill down here. So double click on that to show me the detail under that one line, and then I will go one further out to actually open up the activity in Goldmine. So this is under Machine Doctor record. This is a completed sale. We're talking the product is coming from the product line here in the completed sale in Goldmine. If you don't actually keep your completed sales in Goldmine or any information about them, well, first off, shame on you. But let's say you've got some different practice where you're actually storing it in a separate database, not in Goldmine. It can be brought in to Goldmine. It can either the information can be made available to a Goldmine user without actually being in Goldmine, or some parts of it can be brought back into Goldmine and actually placed in, for example, so that you wind up with fields like I've got here. I've got a year-to-date sales field and a last year sales right in Goldmine. That's actually can be fed from the history tab easily, or it can be fed from your external data. If you don't know how to do that, let me know. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of relate actual Goldmine data. So that was in this case this record on the history tab that we had opened here a second ago. This information is what's being aggregated into that sales report. So I'll just show you a few more examples here. First, I'm going to roll this back up the way I started. So this is my original summary, by product category. What's our goal? How much have we won? What's our pending? Now that's just tells me that it's 2014. Easy enough to go back and look at 2013 and see what the analogous information was, or come back to 2014 again. Now the other tabs in this workbook are variations of the same information, but they are clearly different. Okay, this is the same query. It's just laid out in a different way, so that in this case we've got for the user Rob 2014, same year, but we're breaking it out month by month. Our goal in the top row, and then in the second row is these are ones that we actually already sold. It's July right now, and actually in this demo database here it's probably June still. We've got a fair amount of pending sales for June and the rest of the year, and all that information is being rolled up in order to be able to compare it. But that gives us what did we actually sell from month to month, and what do we still see pending. We might also judge what's realistic here. In this case, we're actually filtering out the ones that have a lower than 30% probability. That is an arbitrary choice that you make in your own reporting that helps you to understand, do I have something that's realistic here that I'm looking at? Well, and let's just go all the way to the bottom line here for the year. We've got 888,000 as a goal for the year, and we've got, as it turns out, add these up, 862,000 is the total already sold plus forecast to sell. 862 is the number down here on the bottom that I summed up. By the way, you can add your own sums in here. Here, we'll just do a little trick here. Pivot table design, go to grand totals, turn on for both the rows and the columns. Now we have our totals down at the bottom. Now that's not a great, the reason I had the grand totals turned off here actually is because, boy. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can get, Carnegie, can you please mute? Thank you very much.
Got it.
All right. So that is, we didn't have the grand totals turned on here because it doesn't make any sense to add up the goal and the projected. What you can do though is just roll up the projected into one row, and that gives you your comparison. So just kind of wanted to demonstrate. I'm just to have this be on for the rows as it belongs, and then here we have that roll up, roll down of what's projected. Projected rolled down, projected rolled up. Commission. One of the concerns that I mentioned before was that users need to be able to know what are they going to make if they accomplish what they say they're going to accomplish, right? So we've got a certain amount pending out here in these future months, but how much will I make? Well, what am I going to make if I do this? Well, in this case, I set up a little commission schedule and we're just using regular Excel spreadsheet stuff on top of the pivot table to come up with a commission report for the sales rep. So in this case, we're paying 15% commission on the sales, a pretty hefty commission there, and overall, and they get a bonus of an extra 5% if they get over their goal for the month, over their goal for the year to date, for the year to date through the current month. So in this case, what we did was calculated the commission at 15% of what they sold. And this is, as you can see, it's just a formula in the spreadsheet. And then in the next row, we did a calculation where if the total amount sold, the year-to-date difference here is the total amount, the total goal amount for the year-to-date. The total won amount for the year-to-date divided by the total goal amount gives you the percentage. The total amount of the goal is the year-to-date difference. In other words, how much over their goal are they? And then they get an extra bonus on that. That's calculated down below, and then you can see the anticipated pay for that sales rep through the end of the year. It's a pretty simple report, really quite simple to do. Feeding that information into the pivot table is also relatively easy if you're using Goldmine in the perfectly standard way. If you're not using Goldmine in that perfectly standard way, then you need to just have somebody who knows what they're doing help direct you to get that information in here in a way that makes sense. Once you have that, you could have a nice report like this. And as a salesperson, I can't tell you how important it is, the difference between flying blind and flying with some knowledge about where it is you're trying to go. And this essentially tells you if you fulfill on your forecasts right now, this is what you will sell. Now, it might make sense to actually bias these forecast ones and say, well, if there's only 75% likelihood that I'm going to sell it, let's only count 75% of it. So we could have that instead of the actual amount in here. We could have the probable amount in there. I'm not going to actually drop it in there, but because it would expand the report to cover this. But converting this to show the probable amount would actually be both more sensible and pretty easy to do for a report like this. Next one I'm going to look at here, this is actually a campaign results one. This one takes a field for where did we get this lead from, which campaign. Either did we get the lead originally from, or was the most recent one that they responded to, marketing campaign, and the dollars that resulted from that campaign in each of the different product categories. It's a pretty easy thing to do. Now this gets at the issue of does your sales rep really understand where the best leads are? Now sometimes that's a decision not for the individual salesperson. Maybe that's a decision for the sales management, but salespeople usually are going to have some sort of feedback on that. And they want to find more leads of the type that are buying from them, and they want us not waste their time, and you should want the same thing for them, not waste their time on the people who are not buying things from them. So you could and should have reports like this that first tell you, well, who's buying, where are we the most successful, and probably a similar report that shows where are we the least successful, where have we actually been spending time pushing for sales that really didn't amount to very much in comparison with the others. And those can be sacrificed in favor of the ones that actually pay off better, again, if you've got some knowledge at your fingertips. This next report is a product analysis report. It's actually very similar to what I was just talking about, where we've got the goal and the projected amount again for the full year. And again, we might use the probable amount instead of the full projected amount. Probable amount, by the way, for actual sales is 100%. So they would pass through as the same value, but the ones that are not sold yet would be discounted somewhat. Why do we have this one in here? I think it was just in order to have a nice, clean, clear image showing, here's our goal, here's our projected sales. Do we actually come out higher or below? And which in this case, gadgets are contributing the most to our sales, widgets somewhat less, and then other, meaning it's sort of a catch-all for the other ones, are more. And all of them taken together, we've got more than our goal. This next one here is, again, a month-by-month kind of cash flow view, but where we were, I think on the other one we were looking at goals and then actuals and probabilities. In this case, it's actually by product. So gadgets, widgets, and other. This is a more straightforward one. This would be something that you all would be able to do right now, even if you don't have your goals in the system, because these are not. There's no goal associated with this one. This is just simply what are we actually selling in these different areas, and what do we expect to make by the end of the year. And again, if this were just homed in, well, actually, I guess it is just with a single user. That's what the totals look like for this one single user for the year. I think that's all I wanted. Oh no, I had two other ones. This is just the same information oriented differently so that we could produce this graph, which is again a month by month showing the total sales. You can sort of see it peaking in the middle of the year and tailing off for the rest of the year. So graphically you get that view where the actual table itself, you can look at numbers all you want and it doesn't give you a picture the way something like this does. And I'm going to look ahead here. Okay, so there are only two more. This is a workbook that obviously has lots of different views in it, but they're all meant to be, things that help a sales rep to understand better. Okay, this is actually what I was shooting for here, which is an industry breakdown for each of the different products. Why is this useful? Again, this tells a sales rep, well, in certain industries, gadgets do well, in other industries, widgets do well. Graphically down here, that's even easier to see. Gadgets seem to do well in the aviation, engineering, and pharmaceuticals markets, where widgets are sort of spread out across those three plus, well, we've got some blank ones here that are blank in the industry field. That obviously is some information in the database that needs to be filled in. How are you going to do that? Well, very easily. You could just drill through and fix it if you have some knowledge. And if you're a sales rep and you see a report like this that's got blanks that show up like that, and you have MasterMine, you could drill through and fix that quickly. If you didn't have MasterMine, you'd probably look at it and say, well, gosh, that's too bad. Didn't tell me information I needed. I'll just walk away. So again, this is just a good reason to actually have people who have an interest in doing a better job, have the tools also that help them to do a better job. This last one, lead source analysis, is just another version of that same previous one. All we really did was drag one field out. Here, let me go back to it. Drag out the industry field and drag in the source field. It's literally like this, dragging out the industry, dragging in the source, and that is the report that we have on this next tab. I also had a wider chart in the other one, but in any case, this also helps me to understand, well, where, as far as advertising goes, this is somewhat more from a kind of a marketing person's perspective, what are the best sources of leads in terms of actual dollars winding up in our pockets at the end? At the moment, we're looking at everything that's projected. We might take only the ones that are actually completed, or you home this in on whatever makes the most sense to you. So so that is a whole set of reports that really answer, I think, almost all of the concerns that I listed on the slide there earlier. Although there are a couple of other reports that I want to talk about. One of them is the neglected leads. So answering the question as a sales rep, am I covering all of my territory? Now, a sales rep is covering their territory if they are selling everything that can be sold to every prospect in their list, right? But the chances are they're not doing that. I mean, it's an extreme statement even to say that anybody sells everything they possibly can to everybody in their territory. So it's really a question of how far short are they falling to selling to every possible candidate in their database. And is that a reasonable amount to fall short? And what are the, presumably as you get closer and closer to 100%, the sales get harder and harder because, leaving the hardest sales for the last. So what's the next easiest one for me to sell? If I've sold, if I meant to sell 100, if I could be selling 100, I've only sold 50, where's the 51st one that I should be able to sell next because it's the next easiest one that's available to me? If you're thinking in terms of finding the best prospects in the database and actually going out and selling them, then you can have reports that support your, finding that kind of information out. So what I opened up here now. Actually, I'm going to diverge a little bit from what I was saying regarding finding the best leads. By where I would go with that is demographically. Where are the best leads for me demographically? Do I work? Am I most successful selling these products to people who have small companies versus large companies, one industry versus another industry, one geography versus another geography? It may be something personal to the sales rep, or it may be something about the product itself. Hopefully the company is concerned enough to know both of those things, but the sales rep themselves would also be benefit by knowing both what are they personally strong at as well as what is their product strong at. I'll come back to that. Actually, I have another report to look at with that regarding that. But I wanted to talk about neglected leads. So to me, neglected leads are, where are the leads in my database that are theoretically of a certain quality? In other words, these are my A leads, my B leads, however it is that I've categorized them that way, that I have neglected. I have not called them within a certain amount of time. You've probably heard me talk about our lost leads or neglected leads reporting before, because I think it's one of the most powerful ways to help sales reps to not let good opportunities fall through the cracks. Now, and let me just pause there for a second and say, every organization has salespeople who let opportunities fall through the cracks. I don't care how good the salespeople are, they're human. That's just simply what happens. And minimizing that is a huge benefit to the company, and letting it go or ignoring it is, I would say, foolhardy. It's not a good way to manage a sales team if you could know what opportunities are falling through the cracks, but you just don't find out. That's just called hiding your head in the sand. This is a report actually that shows by record type of all the records in our database, when was the last time they were contacted? What's the year of the last time they were contacted? So now we've got a little bit of an older database here. We are looking at, I think we are looking at calls and appointments. Let's, I guess I want to turn on my field list here and just see activity types. So let's pull the activity types in here and just see we've got calls, appointments, and actually no contact at all. So if the user, if you have the sort of situation where you consider calls and appointments both to be legitimate contacts with customers, then a view like this tells you who was recently contacted and who has not been contacted in a long time or maybe has never been called. So why would we have in our database 109 accounts or records that have never been called? Well, there could be legitimate reasons for that. So, like for example, let me get our record types in here. If they're, oh, that's what I already had them down here. If they are employees, then of course we wouldn't be trying to make calls to them. If they are unqualified, if they are, different, or they're vendors, we're not trying to call those for sales reps. So let's turn those off. Ignore those for the purposes of analyzing most recent contact. Past clients, probably actually the same way. There may be past clients and you're not intending to try to bring them back again. Other than that, everybody who's in the database should have had a call to them. Well, we've got 87 of them that have never had a call. If I went into the database of just about anybody on this call and spent 5 minutes digging with you with your MasterMine, I'll bet you we'd find some of these qualified leads or maybe leads that have not yet been qualified that are simply lost in your system. Now, we'd probably find out that these ones that are blank in the record type are blank in other fields as well, and that's why they're being ignored, because they're just not coming up in our filters. So let's go do something about them. Drill through, go to the actual records, fill in the fields, and so on, and get those dormant records set up as actual real leads that someone's going to follow up on. Okay, so creating this report, by the way, takes a couple of minutes. Doing a more refined version of it, which I recommend that you do, takes a little longer, because I would suggest that you aren't necessarily interested in when is the last time we had a left message to that person. What you're probably more interested in is when's the last time we actually had a conversation with them. Well, if your coding in Goldmine supports that, in other words, if when they complete the call, the sales rep puts in a result code of COM because I talked to the person, or LM because I left them a message, then you'd be able to filter those out and actually have this report only count it if it was an actual contact with the person. If you've got that, then you've quickly categorized and isolated your accounts that do have a recent contact, the ones that don't have a recent contact, and then you have, your next steps should be pretty obvious after that. Drill through and call them, or assign them to another sales rep, or do some marketing to them, or whatever it's going to be. In this report, I'm not going to go through these all one by one. I just wanted to kind of give you some examples. But I have a number of ways laid out here to look at these. This is by the actual account rep who's responsible for them, the dates they were last called. It looks like in this case, Tina L. and Lori S. have significant numbers that are more recently called, but there's also quite a few that have never been contacted, and so on. And again, you can filter these as appropriate. I'm going to minimize this one, and I want to go on to the calling effort report. And I think that would be call results. Actually, we're going to cover a couple of them at the same time with the call results report. By the way, what I want to do is stop showing you new things within a few minutes and give you a chance to react or ask questions. So if you've got questions, either post them in the question area there, and or actually I'll have Carnegie field those, and Carnegie, you go ahead and feed those to me in a few minutes here when we get going. We can also unmute you if necessary if you'd like to ask a question more directly. Results versus user. This is where I was talking about where you actually have, if you're using result codes in Goldmine, then when they actually call up, you can make a differentiation between when a contact was made. In this case, the result code was COM, or they were disqualified, or you're in process, but you actually talked to somebody, versus no contact was made, left a message, first or second or third message, or made a contact but didn't actually have any progress with them. And if you've got that ability, then you can also do some reasonable sorting of your prospects. So again, you want to know who of our best prospects have not been contacted within a certain amount of time. That's easy enough to do from the other report that I looked at. This gets into more kind of quantifying all of your effort and what your results are. By the way, there's another good way to, this is sort of a middle way. This is not middle in the sense that it's kind of a summary, but it also shows you a fair amount of detail, the actual individual companies, how many calls and appointments have we had with them, where we actually talked to them versus didn't have any contact, and the ones that are blank in here should or have only had a brief, a single contact with them. Those are ones that can be easily followed up on. I think that's all I wanted to show in the call results. this is again a sales manager's view. Each sales rep side by side, how many calls or appointments have they had of certain qualities? In this case, in Q3, by product, by the product that they were calling about. Just sort of an idea for a report there, which you can build on. I think that I'm going to stop it right there. I was going to pull up an exceptions report as well. I'll be happy to do that, but I think the exceptions reporting is fairly obvious. A report that shows you where the holes are. If anybody wants to see that, go ahead and put it in the questions. Otherwise, Carnegie, I think I have seen a couple of questions come in there. Do you want to pass that on to me?
Yep. One of them was, of course, the exceptions reporting. So
oh, okay.
I think people will hang out for that. And another one was back on the neglected leads report. It asked, where is the record type field you are pulling from in the neglected leads report coming from?
Oh, okay. Well, the record type field, that is actually, in this case, this is our contact type field. So if I go over here to Goldmine, you probably have a field in there that's called contact type or something like that. This is, in this case, it's the key one field in Goldmine, and that's most often what companies use that for. They don't always. In your case, you might use it for something else. But if you don't have a field in here that at least categorizes in a large way all of the accounts in your Goldmine database, then you're really lost. But that's the one that I'm pulling there. Yours is, if you look at your own Goldmine screen, probably your first key field is going to correspond with this one pretty closely. So exceptions reporting. Okay, so we wanted to actually see the exceptions report. That's good. Let me pull up. Do I have it? I don't have it named here as such, but I'll go ahead and open up one that I was just recently working with here. Exceptions, here we go. I hope you're all getting great use out of that launch dialog, in particular the list of most recently used reports. It's so useful. It just kills me when I go online with somebody and they don't even know about it. But when in the launch dialog, it does make it easy to go back to where you were the last time. So here's the exceptions report that I set up here, and there's actually in this case I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kinds of exceptions defined here. In your own business, you have your own rules for what people are supposed to do in Goldmine, and you should have a report built around each one of those rules that essentially shows you the exceptions, which records in the database don't conform to this or that rule. So in this case, sale, not client, meaning the under record type, which is again our key one field here, we've got a number of different types of records in here, of course. Some of them say customer and some say client. In this case, we probably should eliminate the ones that say customer, or we should really unify the ones that say client and the ones that say customer. And the reason it's coming out this way, by the way, is we've got some dirty data. We've got some information with some misspellings of the word client in the database. And of course, this is just our demo database, so we keep it a little bit, dirty or a little inaccurate, so that we can demonstrate easily going through and fixing that information. But in our exceptions report, what we want to know is, okay, if they've got a completed sale in Goldmine, shouldn't they say customer or past client in the record type? Well, this is all sales showing what's in the record type, and these are legitimate customer. These ones are legitimate past client, meaning we've had a sale to them. That makes them a customer or a past customer. But so it doesn't really make much sense to have employees with sales under their name. So what's going on? I don't know. Drill through and go find out from the record. Double click and it just pulls up the Goldmine record, right? Here's some that probably should have been changed from prospect to customer when they bought from us, but they weren't. Okay, good. Go through and here I'll demonstrate a little updater for you here. So drill through on those 24 of them, and all of these really should say either customer or past customer. You could go over to the record type field here, which is, where's our record types? right there, and change that to customer, and of course do your updater magic on there to push customer into the records. I'm not going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go that far, and presumably you all know how to do that. So that is, sale. They've had a sale, but but they don't indicate that they're a client in the database. Or here's ones where the result code, in other words, my sales process requires me as a salesperson to when I complete a call, to also put in a result code. Why should I do that? Because if I do, my reporting will accurately indicate what I've accomplished. It will also keep track of, for example, who I contacted versus who I just called but did not contact. And having result codes in there will help me then later on to filter out the ones that need to be that need an extra effort to bring them along because they are, they're neglected. So all of that comes back to, well, if the rule says when you complete a call, put something in the result code, then you need an exceptions report that tells you here's ones that have been added to the database sometime recently that don't have a result code. And then, of course, the next obvious thing is go in and fix them. If you're Rob, you've got 24 of them, go in and look at the actual records. Now, some of these were calls that were made a long time ago, so that's a different story. New leads, no interest. New leads added to the database, but we failed to fill the key interest field in Goldmine. The key interest field is a user-defined field. I think that's probably on the Fields tab here, or it's just actually might be a mislabeled one in one of the key fields. I'm not sure. In your case, essentially that's just an example of a report that focuses on a single field, makes sure that every field gets entered. And we're saying new leads, so it's by the year and month that they were actually created in the Goldmine database. If it's blue, that's at the contact level. That means when the contact itself was added to the database, not something else. Missing email address. Pretty straightforward report there. Who's putting leads into the database that don't have email addresses? Maybe Lori should make a call to those 35 prospects, get a legitimate email address so that they start receiving our marketing. Invalid record type. In this case, what we did was filter out the valid record types: customer, employee, prospect, past credit, prospect, suspect. These are valid because these are the ones in our lookups for that field in Goldmine. Well, if they're not in the lookups, then probably you shouldn't have data in the database that that has values that are not in your lookups. Unqualified in this case probably would be a legitimate one. But everything else here, there's 92 records that don't have a legitimate record type. Well, deal with them and go on. All right, we're getting close to the end here. Any other questions that have come up? Or if there's anybody else who wants to post any questions, again, feel free to either post it there in the questions dialog in the GoToWebinar, or we'll be happy to unmute you and let you ask any questions verbally. If you want to do the verbal thing, just put in questions. I have a verbal question.
Or raise your hand.
Or raise your hand. You can do that too.
But there's no other questions at this point.
Anyone, Bueller? We always say that, but in fact it was never said in the movie. How's that for a nerdy thing to say?
I was going to say, quite nerdy, Rob. Let's go to the...
Yep. Well, it's okay. It's in the final 2 minutes of our webinar here.
Let's get to the PowerPoint.
Okay. If there no more questions, I will go back to the PowerPoint and just kind of wrap it up here. So there we are. And so thank you all very much for your time today. I hope that what I had to say was at least somewhat enlightening. If there are, oh, actually, I have seen, there's another question there. Carnegie,
yep,
we want to deal with that?
This one popped up.
Huh?
How do you go to edit activity record from MasterMine?
From MasterMine. Okay, you know what? Let me show you that very quickly because I can do that in an instant. Let's go back to our, there we are. So the way I did it was we're drilled down, so you have to be on a drill down sheet looking at the record that you want to pull up. This is now in this case, obviously you have to be looking at activities as opposed to looking at, whole account records. But if you're looking at activities as we are here, so these are completed in this case. This is a call that is, can't see whether it's pending or history. We just can't see it from this view. But if you go to the MasterMine drill down menu, edit activity, so pop record actually pops the goldmine record itself. Edit activity opens up the actual activity record, and then so you have both the account record in the background as well as the activity, and you can do what you want to do to edit that. Okay, so I think with that we're going to call this one to a close. I will go ahead and put up that last slide again. I think I will put up that last slide again. It's just my contact info. I know I can do it. It's in there someplace. There we go. Or I can just keep on. There we go. All right, my name, our toll-free number, that's my extension. If you have any questions that you would like to, about things that you would like to be able to do, or other things that you would like to learn about using MasterMine for, please let us know. Again, the purpose of this particular webinar was for those who have salespeople in the organization who could benefit by actually having better knowledge about their market, or better knowledge about their territory, or better knowledge about their products, or better knowledge about anything that's in Goldmine, better knowledge about their own effort. And I would contend to you that that should be just about every company who's represented among MasterMine users or really Goldmine users out there. So with that, thank you all very much for your time. This recording will be made available on YouTube and elsewhere, and thank you all very much.